Okay, so as promised, coming to you with the first segment of the playoff previews for in this case, for the second round, which is starting tonight actually in the NBA playoffs, which is where I said I would start, so I'll start with that. Okay, and the first preview will obviously be the Raptors and the 76ers because the first game one of that series is actually happening tonight at I don't know if it's 7 or 7:30, but it's one of those two in Toronto, and it's between the Philadelphia 76ers and the Toronto Raptors. Now, I am a Torontonian fan. I do have to come clean about that, but even still, I'm going to try and be as unbiased as I can because I know there's going to be Philly fans watching too. And you know what? The first point I'm going to make is let's give credit where it's due. Both teams coming in this series are very, very, very extremely talented. There's no doubt in that on both sides of the ball. Like both sides, you could throw these top fives out there for both these teams. Like you could call them almost well, maybe not on the Raptors side, but certainly on the Philly side. You could give a case that they're all stars on their side, and for the Raptors, you could make a case where certainly two or three of those guys are all stars, but all of them are very good players as well too. So and they have a superstar in Kawhi Leonard, and on the 76ers side, they have Joel Embiid. He's their superstar. He is a superstar. Make no mistake about it about it. Although he's injured, that's going to be a big X factor in this series. Actually, it is the X factor in this series for sure, without a doubt. Because for the Sixers to have a chance in this series, two things have to happen. If you're a Sixers fan, you have to understand this. Embiid must not only play, he must play and attack the Raptors like he should, and be 100%. If they have any chance in this series whatsoever, I'm going to say this: he needs to be playing and be playing at 100%. That's clear. I think everybody will agree to that. But but throwing that aside, let's break down this series mathematically. So, in the regular season, these two teams that are actually division foes because they're both in the Atlantic Division met four times, with the Raptors winning three of those games and the 76ers winning one of those games. Also in Philadelphia, and the Raptors won two in Toronto and one in Philadelphia. Now, of noteworthy significance in those four games, of the three games Toronto played, Kawhi played in all of them, and in the one game that they lost, Kawhi did not play in those games. However, on the Philly side of the things, this is the first matchup where their whole starting lineup, which is on the floor now, and their fire-powered starting lineup with Tobias Harris now and Jimmy Butler and JJ Redick and Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid are now all together. This is the first time they're going up against the Toronto Raptors for in this whole season because the when the Sixers made the trade to get Tobias Harris, remember the Raptors had already played them all four times in the regular season already before that happened. So that's going to be interesting to see how they integrate him into the starting lineup because he's another X factor, which therefore that makes him another X factor in this series because the Raptors have not seen him at all in this series so far, and he was in the Western Conference this year. He's maybe the one player the Raptors obviously know, but don't know nearly as well as some of their other players. Because Jimmy Butler, although he's on Philadelphia now and also arrived like during the season, not before the season. He's for the most part been in the Eastern Conference a while too. So, and he happens to be one of Kyle Lowry's good, very very good friends. So, Jimmy Butler is known obviously as well, very very well, to the Raptors as well as obviously also JJ Redick, Ben Simmons, and Joel Embiid, which they've seen now for the good majority of the last 2 or 3 years, which is about as long as Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid have been in the league. Although JJ Redick just came to the team the year has just come onto the team as well too. This year and the last year, because he was also, I think, acquired last year, if I remember correctly, as well. So anyway, breaking down this series, for my best guess of how this series is going to go, oh, this is a tough one because really these two teams are like, let's give credit here. Both these teams could make a case that they could make a case that they could win this series if you're really being realistic here. But in realistic fashion, if you look at the series, although it's a close series, the Raptors probably have the edge in almost every category I think there is, except maybe coaching, although I'd actually argue that it's much closer, if not dead even in that battle too. So, and the Raptors have home court advantage. So that's why I'm going to take the Raptors in this series. But there's another reason I'm going to take the Raptors in this series. Not because I'm a Torontonian, but you're going to see why I take Toronto in the end, unequivocally, with no bias in the end. And here's why. Here is why. Number one, Joel Embiid, although I will say, if Joel can actually play and be at 100% and play and be the monster that he can be, then Toronto has a problem. As has a big problem because obviously Joel Embiid, when he's on, is the real deal, as well as Kawhi Leonard as well for the Raptors. He's obviously the real deal, and now he's playing at playoff Kawhi Leonard because everybody also has to take into consideration this. Regular season Kawhi Leonard and playoff Kawhi Wait, regular season Kawhi Leonard and playoff Kawhi Leonard are two very different animals. Okay? They are not the same at all. Playoff Kawhi takes his level, which is already here, all the way up to Mount Everest when he's in the playoffs. That's the first thing you need to know about Kawhi Leonard, which is why a one or two star, which is really why a 1 or 2 star team, in this case the Raptors, has probably a great chance in this series, even though you're going up against the 76ers lineup that probably has 5 legitimate All Stars, or at least 4 All Stars, and another very good player, and another very good player. So anyway, so breaking down this series, this is why I take the Raptors in this series, and here's why. Kawhi Leonard versus Ben Simmons. It's gonna it if you're a Sixers fan, I don't get why you haven't forced Ben Simmons to get a jump shot yet. I really don't. Because think about it. He's a point guard. Now, I know he's a tall point guard, so you could say he's a shooting guard or a small forward, blah, blah, blah. He plays the point guard position, okay? You play the point guard position in today's NBA, where the three-point shot is basically everything now in this NBA. This guy doesn't not only can't even shoot the three, he doesn't even attempt to shoot the three. That, especially in today's NBA, is a huge liability, and it's going to come into effect in this series too. When are you going to realize this? This is a huge liability for your team. If you're a Sixers fan, you get out of the playoffs in this series, which I think they will. You have to make Ben Simmons get a jump shot in the offseason. It's that simple. You have to go to Ben Simmons and say, look, kid, you're a good player, no doubt about it. But you must get a jump shot in the offseason, or we got to trade you. Because that's it. Because if you don't, he's too much of a liability for you. And in this series, you're going to see why that is. And here's why. This is a bad matchup for Philadelphia, and here's why. Because Toronto has two big guys, three big guys in the middle, Pascal Siakam, Serge Ibaka off the bench, and Marc Gasol. Two of them, former defensive players of the year. Sorry, not two of them. Gasol is a former Defensive Player of the Year award winner, and Serge Ibaka is two-time first All NBA defensive player and player as well in the past years as well. So both of those two guys really know how to defend and shot block as well. Pascal Siakam is a very underrated defender, and he is very long, so he can also defend the basket too. So if Ben Simmons tries to attack, so Toronto can actually play Philadelphia 5-on-4. And when I say this, I now don't get confused as to say that they won't actually guard Ben Simmons at all, because that's not actually true. Because what I mean by saying that they can guard him 5-on-4, it means that they can not guard him if they want to on the perimeter and essentially dare him to either shoot or drive against them. The problem with that in this series is because Toronto has potent shot blockers, not just big guys, shot blocking big tall guys in the middle. If Ben Simmons tries to come inside and tries to finish over top of them, it's not going to end well for Ben Simmons in this series. I don't think. Oh, as good of a player as he is against these players, it won't end well. Brooklyn's a whole different team than Toronto, and their big guys are they weren't that good. Let's be honest here. Ben Simmons had his way in that series because the Brooklyn Nets' big players were not anywhere near the level of defensive big men that Toronto has. If he tries that against Toronto's big men, he's going to run into problems. So they could do that. So, but I don't think Toronto will actually do that. The other thing Toronto could do with Ben Simmons is they could put Kawhi Leonard on Ben Simmons. And if you're and if you're Toronto, logically, this is what you do. You put Kawhi Leonard on Ben Simmons, and here's why you put him on Ben Simmons as opposed to Jimmy Butler. Look at Kawhi Leonard's record against Ben Simmons. He's 13-0 in his career against Ben Simmons alone, including 3-0 this year. And not only that, you look at Ben Simmons' turnover numbers against Kawhi Leonard in this year. If you're not alarmed by that, you are not. I don't know what's wrong with you, because when this guy is guarded by Kawhi Leonard, this guy is damn near scared to bring up the ball or bounce the ball. He forgets how to play ball. Literally, you watch him play around Kawhi Leonard. It's like he forgets to play ball around Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard, and it went so far as to say in a post game interview that he did. I believe it was after the first game when he has 11 turnovers in that game alone. By the way, against Kawhi Leonard, he went on the air after that game and admitted that I couldn't dribble anywhere. This guy's long, 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 blah, blah, blah. He made every excuse in the book in the world, but it was clear he was scared of Kawhi Leonard in that game. Now, here's why that's important. This is the playoffs. You're fighting for your life here. Ben Simmons, you can't be scared of Kawhi Leonard. You can't be scared of Kawhi Leonard if you're going to have any chance to win in this series, especially since you're the point guard of the team. Of the team here, you're the point guard is the driving engine of any NBA team, or most NBA teams, unless your name's LeBron. But unless your name's LeBron, who's plays a small forward, but in many aspects he plays much more like a point guard, which is it's guard really that he does a small forward. Forward was his ability to be able to run a team and run an offense like he does, but he's a point guard that actually plays point guard. So like so anyway, that's why I say Kawhi Leonard is probably going to be put on Ben Simmons. And also, it's not just that one game that he had 11 turnovers. Ben Simmons actually recorded 24 total turnovers total for the year in the 3 games that he played against Kawhi Leonard. That's an average of 8 turnovers per game against one player in Kawhi Leonard, and he only went 7 of 15, I think it is, against Kawhi Leonard when he did try to shoot it. Those are not good numbers at all. I mean, at all, really, especially for a guy who can't shoot, and you're still only going 7 of 15 from the field, which obviously are all inside the paint shots. Like, if you're not going to shoot and your whole game is at the rim in terms of shooting the ball, then you better be like 75% at the rim and know you're going to finish at the rim for that. For that too. But clearly the Raptors and Kawhi Leonard have been able to shut him down pretty much from that aspect to quite a good degree too, as well. And that's going to come into effect in this series too. So you have those X factors. However, I'm going to give Philadelphia this. Let's give Philadelphia and their team some respect in this level. Most people, when I've seen them predict this series, they're saying Raptors in 4 or 5. This series is going to go 7 games, and here's why. These two teams are just that talented. There's no way any of these teams are going to finish each other off in 4 or 5 games. That's crazy talk here. That's not going to happen. It is going to go 7 games because the Raptors' history, first of all, the Raptors' history in general is to win series most of the time. But if they do, they have trouble closing series out all the time. And in the end, it ends up going to a 6 or 7 game series in these type of series for them as it is. Uh, for them as it is. Although with the edges that Toronto has, they'll and the fact that they have home court advantage, Toronto will win that game in Game 7. So they'll win in 7, but it will go 7. And the other reason it will go 7 games is Philly has too many great players that eventually you're going to have games in this series, probably one for each of their star players, where one player will go in some game along the way each other. That when you factor that in event at that all in, it will end up making the series go to at least 7 games in 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 that that aspect too. So I will give Philly that respect that it will go 7, but Toronto will win in 7 games because of those edges that I say. And also I just don't think Philly is quite mature enough with their core star players that are already there, that have been there from the get-go, which is obviously Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. That's a major fault line with that team too. Those two players are a lot like Kyle Lowry in the sense that they have a very, very bad history of coming up pretty damn shamefully short in the playoffs too, and to a large degree, even though you have 5 All-Stars on your team, remember they're in for a large, they're for the most part, they're your anchors still of that team, even though you have 5 All-Stars. It's those two guys really running the show still. So if those two guys are running your show, and they faltered in recent years with their own play and leading the team when they did, even when they were leading the team, I mean, that's another fault line right there for you to be worried about for Philly. So I just don't see Philly beating Toronto as close as they are to Toronto in this series, but it will go 7 games. I will give Philadelphia that respect there. So my prediction therefore for this series is Raptors in 7. So this is my first video, and obviously I'll be making more videos to come of the other series coming up too, which in the second round will also be the Bucks and the Celtics later on, and also the Warriors and the Houston Rockets. Both those series are also going to be real doozies of a series as well. And also the Blazers series too, whenever they get to find out finally who they're playing, whether it'll be the Denver Nuggets or the San Antonio Spurs, who are currently about to play a seventh game now in Denver, as that series has been extended to a 7th game. So it'll be interesting to see who Denver ends up, as well to see who Portland ends up drawing in their matchup in the second round as well. And we'll obviously have those predictions, and I'll obviously have those predictions for you in the coming days, and those days coming up as well too, as their series will also be starting up in the coming days as well. So there's that to come to as well to look forward to from me as well. So this is prediction number 1. This is prediction number 1 for NBA playoff second round matchup number 1, which in this case is Raptors 76ers. Raptors in 7 over the 76ers. That's my final take. You guys can comment if you want in the comment section below. I'm open to any of your takes because I know I'm going to get some on this topic. That's what happens in this situation. So I'm anxious to see what you guys say here. Say here and what insight you guys might have and I'll show you why I believe in this prediction as well, and I'll give you my insights furthermore in the comment section as well too. All right. So anyway, that's that. Go check that out. There you go.